Say what you want, but there's no denying PlayStation 5 is starting to bring on the games. Slowly but surely, we're starting to get titles that make it harder and harder not to put down that PS5 pre-order. Here are 10 PlayStation 5 games you must play right now that's actually worth buying. Just a side note, these games are my personal opinion, so if there's something on here that you disagree with, don't be a bitch and freak out. Number 10. Watch Dogs Legion. A PS5 launch game that's made even better with its most recent frame rate patch. Legion looks great overall running in its initial 4K 30 FPS mode, but it's nothing compared to the 60 FPS. Switching back and forth between the two modes makes it even more apparent how important frame rate really is. I did notice some stutters during the cutscenes, but everything else was rock solid. Legion is the third game in the Watch Dogs series and the sequel to Watch Dogs 2. If you're familiar with the previous titles, you'll feel right at home with this one. Gameplay consists of shooting, driving, stealth, and hacking puzzles, all set in an open world London. What Legion does differently this time is allow you to recruit NPCs in the open world to complete missions. The idea is interesting, but I don't think it was fully realized until the cooperative multiplayer was added sometime in March. Being able to team up with 4 other friends or complete strangers to complete a mission is where the game truly shines. Number 9. The Neo Collection. I'm Neo. You might ask yourself, what's the point in buying these games again? I already played them on the PS4. Well, you might be right, but on the PS4 and PS4 Pro, you had to make a choice whether you wanted to prioritize frame rate or resolution. On PS4 Pro, you either played the game in 4K 30 FPS or 1080p 60 FPS. Now on PS5, you can have the best of both worlds, offering a 4K option that lets you play both games in 2160p at 60 FPS. If resolution isn't important to you, there's always the default setting. This one is called PS5 mode, which lowers the resolution just slightly, but offers better shadows, screen space reflections, and more detailed character models while still running at a rock-solid 60 FPS. Trust me, this is the mode you want to use. And then the last option is the 120 FPS mode. I have yet to try this one out as I do not have a TV that can support that frame rate. Let me know how it is for those who have that type of display. Unfortunately, using the 120 FPS mode does drop the resolution to 1080p. So how is the actual game? Well, it is from Team Ninja, so you know it's not going to be a walk in the park. Expect to die a lot in this game, but I think you already knew that. If I had to describe it, it's part Demon Souls and part Onimusha. Levels look super sharp on the PlayStation 5, and the load times are almost instantaneous. If you like your games hard, then the Neo Collection on PS5 is the way to go. Number 8. Guilty Gear Strive. I don't know much about the Guilty Gear franchise, but there is one thing I do know. Rollback, as in the netcode used for online play. A first for the series and a welcome addition at that. Helping to reduce lag and correct players' inputs, rollback is the future for online fighting games. Of course, I don't believe anything until I see it for myself, so I called up a good friend of mine in Australia to help test the netcode with me. After many matches, I can confidently say, rollback is the real deal. Kudos to Robert at Windy Corner TV for taking the time to help me out. Online matches felt like we were sitting in the very same room. That's freaking impressive. Let me put this into perspective. I play a lot of Street Fighter V, and there are occasions where I had trouble playing someone a few miles away. Capcom, I think you need to get with the times and start using rollback in the next Street Fighter. In terms of visuals, I'd have to say this is probably the prettiest looking 2D fighter I've ever seen. Running in 4K, 60 FPS of course. I especially like what they did with the character intros. The camera zooms in and out, giving it sort of like a pseudo 3D look, even though everything is still in 2D. It looks great. I mean, I thought Dragon Ball FighterZ looked good, but Strive is even better if you can believe that. I just have a few minor complaints here and there. Character selection seems a little skimpy, and setting up an online match can be kind of confusing. Like, could they have made it any more complicated? All I need is a room with names telling me who I'm gonna fight against. I don't need little avatars running around. Who thought that was a good idea? Still, even with these annoyances, I couldn't recommend it enough. If you need a new fighting game to pick up, Guilty Gear Strive is the way to go. I mean, even if you suck at fighting games, just take a look at the graphics. Number 7. Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now here's a game to show off that shiny new piece of hardware. If you're wondering what graphics mode to play in, it's performance ray tracing. You're welcome. Even if you factor out the whole superhero aspect, the visuals alone is reason enough to buy this game. It's pretty much like watching a movie. To simply put it, Spider-Man Miles Morales looks absolutely stunning. The previous Spider-Man looked good, but I think this one looks even better, mainly due to the addition of ray tracing and a smoother frame rate. Another refinement would have to be that it just feels a whole less repetitive. Thanks to some gameplay tweaks and a shorter campaign, Miles Morales picks up a lot quicker than his predecessor. There is less emphasis this time on gadgets and more on using your unique powers and abilities. Boss battles are awesome as well and completely over the top. The way the camera zooms in and out makes you appreciate how far video games have come. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I love games that revolve around the wintertime. Web swinging through the city during the holiday season never felt so good. Just something about the snow gives me a feel-good factor. Probably because it reminds me of Christmas time. The opening scene is just so chill and relaxing. I feel like I'm on winter holiday, even though it's summertime over here in the States. Number 6. Resident Evil Village. The more I got into this game, the more I realized how much of a deviation RE Village is from the main series. And that's not entirely a bad thing. It still plays like Resident Evil, but the overall feel and tone has somewhat changed. There's still plenty of jump scares to keep you on your toes, but I found there was less focus on the mundane activities from previous games. I mean, you still have to collect items and keys, but the way you go about doing it feels a lot more streamlined. The game might seem very scripted early on, but does open up to more exploration as you go. If you enjoyed RE7, then you'll absolutely love Village. Picking up 3 years later, you once again play as Ethan Winters, only this time you're searching for your 6-month-old daughter who's been kidnapped. You ever notice how someone's always getting kidnapped in these survival horror games? The game looks beautiful as a whole and a great reason to jump on the next-gen bandwagon. With improved lighting and gameplay performance, Village takes full advantage of PlayStation 5's graphical horsepower. Although the shooting isn't as strong as in previous games, the story and narrative makes it worth playing through. It's a great game whether you're a fan of the series or not, and it doesn't necessarily require much knowledge from the previous title either. Probably because it has nothing to do with the other games, to be honest. Number 5. Yakuza. Like a Dragon. I'll be honest, I was so dreading having to play this game when I found out it was an RPG. How did I not know it was an RPG? Anyway, as luck would have it, I actually ended up really enjoying this game. If you're interested in Japanese culture or just want to do some sightseeing, you might want to consider Like a Dragon, as the game takes place in Japan. However, unlike previous games in the series, the story has shifted away from Tokyo and now centers around the Yokohama district. Gameplay no longer revolves around real-time beat-em-up mechanics, but rather turn-based RPG. Unlike your usual turn-based RPG, Like a Dragon allows you to use surrounding items in the environment to attack your enemies. It's a departure from what fans of the series have grown to know and love, but I actually think it works pretty well. It's different and it does take time getting used to, since all you want to do is spam the attack button. One thing I really like about this game is just being able to walk around and see what's around the next corner. I've never been to Japan, but I assume it looks somewhat like how it's portrayed here. Clubs, restaurants, it even has the Club Sega arcade building. That's probably the best thing about this game, the side activities you can do. You can pretty much get lost in this game. I mean, check this out. It has the entire Virtua Fighter 2 code built into the game. I mean, how freaking cool is that? That alone is enough for me to recommend this game to anybody. You'll probably enjoy Like a Dragon if you're a fan of the series, but if you're a Sega fan, I think you'll enjoy it even more. Did I mention it runs in 60 FPS? Number 4. Demon's Souls. Love it or hate it, this was one of the main reasons to buy a PS5 at launch. It's difficult as hell, but rewarding when you figure things out. I'm not the biggest Demon's Souls fan, and quite frankly, I've never played the original on PS3 until recently. In comparison, this remake is a hell of a lot better, both in terms of gameplay and visual aesthetics. I've heard some complaints from fans of the original that some of the new character models don't look right. I think some people just need to take off their nostalgia goggles. All the changes I've seen so far have been for the better. Controlling your character is smoother thanks in part to a faster frame rate, and the overhauled graphics give you a taste of what next gen has to offer. It's not a completely new game, quite the opposite really. It still plays the same with just a few quality of life changes. It's a great title to show off your new PlayStation 5, but due to its steep learning curve, I wouldn't exactly say Demon's Souls is for everyone. It's a tough game and you really gotta stick with it, but trust me, once you do get a hang of it, you won't be able to put it down. If you missed it the first time on PlayStation 3, then the remake is the perfect place to start. Number 3. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Boy, am I glad I waited to play this on next gen. If you're familiar with FF7 Remake on PS4, you can expect a whole host of improvements. Faster load times, better textures, and various system enhancements have been reworked into the PS5 release. The first thing you'll notice instantly is visual clarity. Intergrade looks a hell of a lot sharper on Sony's next-gen console. Not only that, but the addition of fog and volumetric lighting help elevate the graphics even more. Oh, and I think there's also some bloom added in there as well. These are all nice visual improvements, but I think the most important one of all is the 60 FPS performance mode. I never realized this game could look so good running at a higher frame rate. Let me tell you, with all these games getting a performance performance boosts, I find it harder and harder to ever go back to 30 FPS. As if that wasn't enough, Square Enix incorporated adaptive trigger support for the PS5's DualSense controller. And if you're worried about having to buy another copy of the game, have no fear. If you own a physical copy of the game on PS4, then you get a free next-gen upgrade on PlayStation 5. The only thing you'll have to pay for is the extra side missions, but other than that, all next-gen enhancements are free. So what are you waiting for? Oh right, a PlayStation 5. Number 2. Returnal. Have you guys ever seen that movie, Edge of Tomorrow? It's the one with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. I think the slogan was live, die, repeat, which is exactly what you do in this game. Returnal is a third-person roguelike shooter released exclusively for PlayStation 5. It was developed by the same guys who made Super Stardust HD. My old school PS3 owners will know what I'm talking about. You play as a space pilot who is stranded on an alien planet. Gameplay consists mainly of you running around shooting what I assume are aliens, collecting power-ups, and listening to audio files detailing the events that happened prior. Every so often, you'll have a random flashback that reveals more of the story. It's really interesting and very well told. It's kind of like those movies where the main character has amnesia, but slowly begins to recover their memory as they interact with things around them. Now, because this is a PS5 exclusive, developers have taken full advantage of the system hardware. Advanced haptic feedback support, 3D spatial audio, real-time ray tracing, reduced load times, as well as other visual effects within the game. The thing I love most about Returnal is how well it captures the feeling of being lost on an alien planet. I imagine it's how Samus must feel in those Metroid games. Oh wait, those games already do that. The tone and atmosphere is spot on. The gunplay is equally amazing. Each firearm has its own style and unique way of handling. It's exciting when you come across a new weapon and can't wait to see what the second alternative fire looks like. There is, however, just one minor complaint I have with this game. It's the roguelike nature of Returnal that's hard to look past. Each time you die, you start back from the very beginning. I know it's the way the game was designed, but for me, it's so hard to get invested in a game where I know all my progress is lost upon death. Fortunately, this design has been expertly woven into the story, which I think works very well. Number 1. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the killer app for PlayStation 5. If you play this for a few minutes and don't crack a smile, then I'm sorry, but you must be dead inside. The 16th installment in the Ratchet & Clank series. Oh my god, is there that many? The game takes place right after Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus, released on June 11, 2021, and developed exclusively for PlayStation 5. Rift Apart brings back a lot of what you love about the franchise. Fun, addictive gameplay, crazy, outlandish weapons, and beautiful graphics. One of the best, if not the best looking PS5 game to date. If you thought Ratchet & Clank looked great on PS4, then you haven't seen anything yet. Big, colorful explosions, amazing action set pieces, and bright, beautiful scenery. This, my friend, is what next gen is all about. Don't bother setting the game to quality mode. Performance ray tracing is the ticket. Past games have gotten to the point of Pixar quality graphics, but I think Rift Apart is where the story and narrative have finally reached the standards set forth by animated movies. It's the kind of game that when you start playing, you're reminded of why you play games in the first place. You might find something that's just as good on competing hardware, but I doubt you'll find anything better. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is the reason to own a PlayStation 5. I know, I said it. Now, if you want to see more games worth getting on PS5, then click the links on the screen or the ones that are pinned down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.